Welcome back, YouTube. Today, working on this Yerfdog Go-Kart. Another one, yes. This is going in for a trade that I've already made for somebody. I paid $100 for it, had to put a new motor in it. And we are gonna go ahead and get a performance intake put on it. Something a little bit better. This one seems to be running a little bit rich, and I'm pretty sure it's the air filter, and that's the only air filter I have, so I'm gonna use it. Plus it'll give it a little bit more oomph. Anyways, let me get you set up on the stand here. We are gonna go ahead and get that carburetor taken apart and go get it cleaned up, rejetted, and we'll get it reinstalled, and then we'll go for a ride. Okay, we're gonna get started by taking off this air filter housing, which of course removes that cover. We're going to remove this air filter. I'm not planning to go too much in depth on this go-kart. I just want to get it done and gone. And we'll remove all that. Next up, I'm going to shut our fuel off. I'm going to take off these two bolts, nuts I should say. Set those somewhere where we won't lose them. And there's another one, another bolt here. It'll be a pain with my impact. Move that one as well. And then we can take this off. Of course, is by putting on that filter, we're going to need to come up with a solution for that, which usually I just end up taking a chunk of 1/4 inch fuel line and putting a fuel filter on it and then just zip tie it somewhere. As I will show you. So now that that's off of there, we're going to go ahead and remove this carburetor. For the Honda, you pull it forward until this rod comes pretty straight, and then you can pull that right out of there. And that little spring comes off as well. And then once you remove this line, gasoline is going to come out of here. So I have just a random round piece of metal that's roughly the right size, which this one is actually a little bit too big. So I'm going to go find a different one, and I'll be right back. I found a 22 caliber bullet casing, that'll work. Go ahead and pull that fuel line off. Pinch it while you take it off, and then you won't drip gas. And I'm going to go ahead and just insert tool, bolt, whatever you got right in there. And then if you really want to be careful about it, then you can put that on there, and then that's not going to drip. Now I got the carburetor, and I'll meet you back inside. Alright, so we got the carburetor here. Go ahead and take that choke lever off. And we're going to take this screw off. This is your idle adjustment screw. And actually, we will start by, we just got a can here. Just going to dump the last little bit of gas out of it. I don't expect this one to be too bad at all. Right, there we go. Get that off to the side. This little jet here, this is your idle mixture jet. There's a little teeny tiny hole down inside of there that you might have to clean. You can just go at it with some carburetor cleaner. Otherwise, I don't see where it is right now, but I have a pick that I have sharpened that I use to dig out those jets. You take a thumbtack and sharpen it on 3 sides, and get yourself a pretty sharp needle that you can use to poke those jets out and get them cleaned up. So now that jet's out, this is your fuel bowl, your sediment bowl. So that one's not too bad. Then there's an O-ring under here. Go ahead and pull that O-ring out. And in this case, this one is still plenty flexible. It's fine. For what we're doing, it is perfectly fine. We're going to take out this middle bolt. And that carburetor is really clean, actually. And next I'm going to inspect this gasket. Now the deal is, this bowl gasket shouldn't ever see fuel on it, except for, like in this case where it's a go-kart and the gas is sloshing side to side, then it will touch it. Otherwise, if that's leaking, it's because if it's leaking pretty profusely, it's because your float is stuck down. Then we can pull that needle out, that pin, and then here's our needle, and down in here's our seat, and then inside of here until I can find the gap in it. This one has a pretty tight one. Let's try smaller. Yeah, there we go. You're going to want to get that screwdriver as centered as possible in there so that you don't strip that out. And then that will fall out. Sometimes this won't fall out. If that does not fall out, then you can open up and get a screwdriver in there to pry on it from the back side. So now that we got all that out of there, we can go through, and if we're gonna just, in this case, if we're just gonna clean this, we can just kind of run some carburetor cleaner through all the different jets. You know, and especially down in here, you're gonna want to make sure you get that one. And then this jet here goes across this hole and then comes out inside of here. Got to make sure that that's clean and clear. In this case, I can just spray this off and clean it, but I have an ultrasonic cleaner, so I'm going to use it. I will go ahead and get this all inside that ultrasonic cleaner, get it cleaned, and then I'll bring you back. Alright, so there we go. I got her all put back together again. She looks pretty much like brand new. No, I'm screwing with you. She's right here. But in all reality, that ultrasonic cleaner does do a really, really nice job. I'm not too worried about that corrosion in there. Here's the original gaskets. Here's the old jets. And okay, there's all the parts. So we are going to go ahead and put this other jet in there. I think this is an upgraded jet. Doesn't really seem like it. I think they're about the same size. Focus. Okay. Either way, I would actually reason that this one is definitely bigger. So we're going to go ahead and put this one back in it. We're not going to put the new one in there. The new one seems to actually be a little bit smaller. So it's no wonder why this one ran a little bit rich. This might be a jet out of like a GX390 or something like that too. There's a chance that they got screwed up. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start by dropping that guy in there. And that jet back in there. And we'll get that tightened. Just snug. It doesn't have to be super tight. Alright, then we're going to put this bowl gasket back in. Make sure she wants to seat correctly, which she does. Now it doesn't look the greatest of shape, but honestly, again, it only is going to slosh up against there when you're going around corners and stuff like that. And in this case, I can tell you right now that it's making plenty good enough grip. It's going to be just fine. We'll also put this one back in here. This one will also be just fine. Next up, we will go ahead and make sure that that needle and seat are back together, or that needle is back on that float. And this one is a fixed float. There's no way to adjust it, so we don't need to worry about adjustments. Go ahead and put that pin back in there, center it up, and then we can put the bowl back on. Now mind you, this is the front, like this. You want to orient this in a direction that you can easily access so you can drain your fuel bowl. On a Tecumseh 8-horse, it's different. There's only one orientation that it'll really fit in. I'm going to go ahead and snug that up. Not super tight, just snug. And then we can go ahead and put this back on. If you're really worried about it, you can go ahead and put a little bit of light oil on that. I happen to have some. It'll help when that goes to seal against that O-ring. It'll help make sure it doesn't bind and pinch that O-ring, because it's a twisting motion that this is applying to that O-ring versus just a straight up clamping that the bowl does. Just snug. Then we're going to want to take, and you'll notice that this has tabs on it, so you're just going to line up one of the tabs. It doesn't really matter. Just like that. And then you're going to put this screw back in. And hold your throttle all the way shut, just like this. And tighten that screw down until she just makes contact in there. Then I like to watch that throttle blade. We're just going to peek it open. Just a little tiny bit. Just like that. See how that's just barely open in there? Alright, and so that carburetor is pretty much rebuilt, ready to go back on. And that will just go back on there, just like that. So I will meet you back out at the go-kart. Alright, so I did want to show you this. I took a chunk of 1/4-inch fuel line and just a cheapy fuel filter, and I just zip tied it in a way that 1/4-inch fuel line fits pretty good inside that hole. About as snug as the old hose did, and we're just going to breathe that right to atmosphere. That is only on there for emissions purposes. I would not recommend leaving that off completely, as this engine runs, that pulses in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out air as the piston goes up and down, and it will suck dust and debris in there, which will get into your engine and hurt the engine pretty bad if you're not careful. So this filter should prevent the dust and debris from going in there. And this is plenty long enough that more than likely it's just going to be cycling inside of this tube and not necessarily going all the way up and in. Alright, I'm back. Got that carburetor. I'm going to go ahead and start off by pushing that back, pinching on that fuel line, and pulling that plug out of there, which you might have to use a pair of pliers. Something of that nature. Go ahead, put that line back on there, and then we will get that hose clamp put back in place. Go ahead and put that guy back in place. Make sure that that throttle is actuating perfectly, which it is. The governor is going to automatically hold that open just a little bit until the engine's running. So now we're going to go ahead and I've got this plate that came with this engine. Otherwise you can use the paper gaskets. And we're going to need our adapter. And we'll see if this adapter is going to work with that gasket, which it seems to. Seemed to work plenty good enough. And we can go ahead and put these two nuts back on there. Okay, so I was just noticing that the screw on the back of this adapter was pushing on the back of that blade, but it only affects it. It doesn't quite let it go to full choke. That's not going to be a problem with this go-kart. It runs pretty dang good when I started. I don't foresee that actually being an issue. Go ahead and move all that stuff out of the way and grab that filter. Now, being that this is a used filter, it does have a big old ding in it. Not that big of a deal. Squeeze that on there, orient it the way you want it. And in this case, I need to go grab my screwdriver quick. And we'll get this oriented down here so it's not so big of a deal, not big of a bother. Now this air filter does seem to block off that starter recoil rope pretty good, but I can still easily get to it. And I do want it inside the frame of the chassis, so as if I were to turn it 180 degrees, it would stick out. It would stick out over here, which I don't want. I want that inside of there, especially because the back of this go-kart goes down like that, and as the position it's in right now, it completely misses it. So go ahead and fire this thing up. Leave this on. Yes, it is. All right. Warm up for a minute and I'll bring it back. There we go. Let's get you installed on a chest mount. Here we go. Yeah, it's a decent little go-kart. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. This is Crazy Builder 141 signing off.